Hello, this is Internal Sadist, and today's topic is obviously going to be about George Floyd and police brutality and police police officers when it comes down to it. So it's going to be about both for the most part. My my thoughts on the whole entire situation is that police officers do and do need more training for the most part. It's almost like we do a rush job to actually get police officers out on the street without doing their due diligence to actually train them properly. On top of that, it's almost like the county or the city is trying to cut costs by not training them properly in the same token. That's my thoughts on the whole entire thing. I believe that, they need more training, most definitely. Because to be honest with you, this is pretty much gotten out of hand for the most part. Because I always say in like a lot of my last streams that the minute your grandmother has to buy you a bulletproof vest, shit's fucked up for the most part. Um, and that's typically how that works. And the sad part about that is, I believe that the cops did go a bit far on arresting him for the most part. They could have did better, and they could have used a lot more training to actually prevent that from actually happening for the most part. Because at the end of the day, he wasn't resisting arrest; he was just laying there, and the officer did have his knee on his neck, unfortunately. And my overall thoughts on when it comes to cops and stuff like that, I'm gonna I'm gonna preference this so I can actually continue this podcast. My thoughts on police officers. Do I hate police officers? No. Do I trust police officers? No. The irony to it, me being a person of color or a minority, uh, Afro Latino, I'm more likely to trust a white guy who just hung five black people and who's wearing a white hood. I'm just keeping it 100 than I am to actually trust the police. Because I think I preferenced this in a live stream or a video by saying if I'm running for my life from an animal and three cars pull up, one with a group of white women in it, another one with, one with white women in it, another one with police officers in it, and another one with KKK members dressed in full garb, head to toe. I'm going to choose the KKK members' car to actually get in to get away for the most part. It's sad, but it's true because I don't trust any of the other two options for the most part because ain't nobody got time to be accused of some shit in one vehicle, and ain't nobody got time to be killed because somebody fear for their life in another vehicle for the most part. I have a better chance of actually living with the people dressed in the white hoods, unfortunately, when it comes to cops or women. If I had to pick and choose between the guys in the hood, the white hoods, or the women and the cops, I have a better chance of living and having much more credibility and my character not being tarnished with those guys. That being said, moving on. I don't trust police. I don't. Yeah, no. I'm very neutral when it comes to police. I don't really trust them. I don't hate them, nor do I dislike them. I just don't trust them because my thoughts on police officers because I've had like a weird relationship with police officers. I've been accused of ridiculous shit that I eventually got to walk free on. Hell, I've been accused of stealing my own car several times with or without a key. I've been accused of being a drug dealer, and even when I wasn't. I've been accused of robbing a store. I've been accused of, you know, fitting a description more times than I can even account. It's just shit like that that just makes it so, dude, I no longer trust you. And the sad part about that, even when I've been arrested or like been in custody, like they'll try to swear up and down my name is something else, even though my ID and what I said in my ID says totally different. They'll try to swear up and down my name is like some other guy or something like that, which is very stupid, despite the fact that they're holding my ID and looking at it. So I don't really have a really, really good I never really trust police for that reason because I found out that you can actually be implemented for a crime even if you don't really have the name or fit the actually or you actually are the person for the most part. Hell, I've been taken in for less for just waiting for public transportation. I've been picked up by the police for fitting a description or for committing a crime that I didn't even commit. And the sad part about that is like the sad part about that is I've never once actually committed a crime, but I do understand as a human being that this lack of training is a gateway to more devastating shit when it comes to citizens. Like a good example of devastating shit where cops overstep their boundaries or you overstate or overused or use of power is the nurse that was in well, I forget what state that was in, but she was following the rules that the officers police department in the hospital has set up for them for the most part on blood draw. And the sad part about it is she was in the right, but she still got arrested and taken out to the car, which is an over abuse of power. Another good example of that is the officer in Vegas who shot an innocent white guy came in with like high powered weapons and even was stated in on body cam and Mike saying, "Oh, I can't wait to use this thing." And he actually used it, and he pretty much brutally murdered this poor white guy crawling towards him, like trying to basically keep his pants up while he's crawling towards the officer because he's literally came out and like without no build and shit like that, and found officers basically with guns drawn on them for the most part. Um, another good example of that is the yoga mom who heard a noise in the alleyway behind her house and was shot to death by the police because she was threatening. This woman probably only weighed what, like 88 pounds, soaking wet with her hair in yoga pants, with yoga mat and all the equipment to go with it for the most part. And the cops were threatened by this small ass white woman for the most part. So I do believe that the cops need more training. I do believe that the cops have overstate and overstepped their lines and boundaries for the most part, and when they enforce shit. And a good example of you know when they say it was him or me, or I felt threatened, it was him or me, is it's funny how when you know a mass shooting happens, multiple shots, multiple magazines and clips were used, and they're able to walk these people out alive and not feel threatened in the least bit. So when a mass shooting happens, you don't feel as threatened as when you got an unarmed person in your presence for the most part, and you have the need to shoot that person. And it's just shit like this that just blows my mind when it comes down to it. Like, why are you using such force for very little, to nothing for the most part? It kind of reminds me of the one time at the when a black guy came out from, what was it, Walmart, and he basically fed a description, but it ended up not being the guy. And they went to arrest him, and his one partner went to go put handcuffs on him, and the other guy got a good running start to come and jump kick him down to the ground, while his partner was actually trying to put the handcuffs on him. And the guy like didn't fall over; he literally stumbled forward and kept his balance. And they got him for resisting arrest. Meanwhile, he's asking, "What was that for?" And they got him for resisting arrest. Like, the fuck. Like, why was the jump kick? Why was a good running start jump kick even necessary when your partner literally had the guy was literally putting the guy in handcuffs? Like, and the sad part about that, the guy ended up being an innocent guy and ended up being the wrong damn guy. Like, think about that shit. It was the wrong damn guy, and you did all this shit for no reason whatsoever. And the sad part about that is shit like this happens on a regular basis so often. And you'll hear people like, well, this, that, and the other. Oh, you should have followed the rules, or you should have complied, or you should have did this. The problem with those people saying this shit is these are the same people who's never actually been in that situation to actually be able to say what they would do if that was the case. The sad part about that is basically to debunk, well, you should have obeyed or you should have complied or you should have did all this stuff, is when you're put in a situation where your body is threatened, there's this thing called flight or flight, fight or flight, basically. What happens is how your body perceive, how you mentally perceive something and how you physically perceive something actually puts you in a fight or flight thing for the most part. And the sad part about that is either you'll stand and fight or you'll try to run for the most part. That's typically how that works. And like people fail to realize that this is a psychological thing that affects you mentally and physically. Most people will fight. Some people will run. Even if they know they're innocent, they'll just take off running because it's a flight or fight response for the most part. And when I hear people say, well, you should have complied, well, the problem with that though is fight or flight kicked in and it was either fight or flight. This is where a lot of this resisting arresting comes into play, because the sad part about that is psychologically, if you know you're cooperating, but the person's using excessive force on you, you're either A, going to go into fight or flight mode for the most part. So if you're actually complying, you're putting your hands behind your back, and then, somebody basically does some obscene shit to you while this is taking place, you're automatically going to go into fight or flight mode. It's just facts. And the sad part about that is people forget about this and they kind of sort of sweep that under the rug when it comes down to it. And I've always been one of those people that always said, when it comes down to it, if I'm the witness to a crime, I'm going to be in the win like I did it, worse than a criminal who actually did it. It's just facts. I'm not reporting shit. I ain't see shit. You got to catch me. Fuck you, basically. And that's typically how I've always looked at things, because I ain't got time to be caught up in some bullshit for no reason whatsoever when I don't have to be. That goes for cops, or that goes for anything along that lines for the most part, because I ain't got time for that shit. I just ain't got time for that. I don't feel like being caught up in the bullshit that is being arrested. Hell, because there's been times, there's been stories where, like, lady's pregnant in jail. Let's pregnant in jail. Lets officers know. They ignore her. She has baby on the floor. Both her and the baby dies in a cell. She has the baby. Baby bleeds out. Dies in the cell. Basically, there was a case where, a lady was on her period, and the officers didn't supply her the necessary sanitary wipes that she needed, and she basically bled all over herself and peed all over herself and got blood all over the place. And the sad part about that is when they got to trial, she literally was dismissed, despite the fact that she might have did whatever she did wrong. She was dismissed because of the negligence of the police. And I've noticed if it happens to a woman, if anything happens to a woman, they're more likely to dismiss the case or, bring charges. If it happens to a man, we can pretty much overlook that for the most part. And that's typically how a lot of this stuff works. That's why I said if I witness a crime, I'm being a win worse than the actual criminals who did it. Because I'm not finna testify shit. I'm not finna go to court for shit. Even if I'm innocent, I'm not going to court to be a character witness. I'm not going to court to testify as a witness. I'm not going to court at all, because I'm going to avoid that at all costs. So if I'm a witness to a crime, just know taxpayer dollars. There's going to be hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars dedicated to finding my black ass just so I can be a witness in that crime. And you're not going to find me. So you're going to exhaust a shit ton of money looking for my ass, basically. It's that simple. Because I typically don't trust the cops, nor do I believe the cops, nor do I just don't trust them. Don't get me wrong. I've had a shit ton of bad experiences with cops, but also when I've actually done something wrong, I've had the most best, gracious, most honorable, best acting police I've ever met. Like when I like on a parkway, I have a habit of speeding on a parkway. When I get pulled over by the police, those cops are the coolest, greatest cops I've ever met in my whole entire life. They're not dicks about it. They're very they're very jokey and jovial, and they joke with me and shit like that. And and it's just stuff like that. And they're not just dicks about it for the most part. I know I did something wrong. Sometimes they let me off with a warning. Sometimes they let me off with, sometimes they let me go because, end up being a really, really good not relation, I mean, conversation or dynamic that we had when the pulling over happened for the most part. So I can admit that I've been let off because, the cops have been in a good mood and everything's actually went right. And we both jived as human beings and stuff like that. And I made his day, he made my day, and we both had a good day, and we both moved on, and I didn't have to get a warning basically or a ticket. And then I've also had cops where they gave me a ticket and they were actually really, really nice about it. And when I got to court, to actually have to, fight it or, go to court about it, like, it was so funny that, it was end up being the funniest thing in the world where like, the judge cuts it in half and I end up only paying part of it for the most part. So I've had good experiences when I've actually did something wrong. But the sad part about that is when I didn't do anything wrong, I get the most dickish, ignorant, asshole motherfuckers as police officers in the whole entire world. It's just facts. But when I do something wrong, I get the coolest police in the whole entire world. I think only one time when I did something wrong, I got a dick police officer. Only one time. Only one time. But like the sad part about that is all the rest outweigh that. And the sad part about that, when I didn't do anything wrong and I was mad at my business, I get the most dickish police officers in the world. Hell, I've had a cop try to plant shit on me. I was walking down the street and they were arresting some drug dealers, and a cop literally said to me, "That's yours. Get up against the wall." Like, nigga, I wasn't even here. And they literally threw me up against the wall and shit like that. And if it wasn't for the drug dealers who actually owned the shit, my black ass would have been swept up in that shit for the most part. The sad part about it, the drug dealers who actually owned the shit actually said he had nothing to do with that shit. That was my shit. The cop tried to put it on him. Literally, spoke up for me. So it's just shit like that that just blows my mind when cops can actually do that to people. But at the end of the day, you have the people that'll say, the stuff that they do. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. If you were in a situation, there's a high chance that you would be in fight or flight mode for the most part. And there's a high chance that you wouldn't cooperate if shit starts getting a little ridiculous because your body's naturally going to react to that shit when. Because the sad part about that is naturally you're going to cooperate with the police. You're going to ask questions, but you're going to cooperate. But the sad part about that, the minute that the party who you're cooperating escalates the situation, despite the fact that you're cooperating, your body's automatically going to go into automatically subconsciously is going to go into fight or flight mode. It's just facts. So you can't say cooperate when in fact the person's body is automatically going to go into fight or flight mode for the most part. It is what it is. But I digress. And y'all have a good day. Peace.